Good evening, folks. Let me gently introduce our panel for tonight's debate. The magic Dr. Orlando, the indefatigable Kathleen Taylor, Jason Springer now.
JT, what's good?
Yeah, Mikey Pokorny.
Yes, that's close enough. Sure.
I can say Pokorny. I can say Pokorny. That's actually,
there we go.
That actually is what it is. It's Pokorny. But I overheard you saying, the derivative of the name. How does it come? It's because it's an interesting name, isn't it? It sort of sounds a bit like East Coast.
There's Pokorny, that's more Midwestern. Pokorny is the more Slavic pronunciation. If you go to Chicago, there are more Pokornys and Pokornys.
Can I just go with Spicoli?
Spicoli. That sounds good.
Casual.
I'll have that.
Sounds like an Italian dessert.
Yes. And running all our electronics tonight, Neil Rasmussen. So, here's one for you. Don't want you to get all fighty about this. I'm just interested to know what you think. Immigration, voter fraud, and other ID issues, getting on an aeroplane, stuff like that. Is there a case for a voluntary, and repeat, voluntary, national swipe biometric ID card? This card is not a financial card, simply a card issued federally that can be used as ID everywhere in the country.
What's a passport?
Let's go with Dr. Orlando.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. We already have exactly that thing, and right now about half of Americans don't use it. So, to my way of thinking, no, there cannot be a case that is made for a biometric federal ID, because passports are not going anywhere.
But not all Americans have passports because they don't think they're necessary, because America's more important than anywhere else in the world.
But you said it's voluntary.
Yes, it's absolutely voluntary. But what I'm getting at is that there seem to be so many occasions when people are not allowed to do things because they don't have ID. They get pulled over, and if they look like they've come from somewhere that's not America.
Again, the instance of a passport is the response to this argument. As long as people have the option to buy passports and don't, for whatever reason, indicates that passports or some other federal ID is not the answer. Some other voluntary federal ID is not the answer.
Although, quite honestly, I have seen more and more people carrying their passport card, which is an option you can get, and that you can keep handily in a wallet, and if that becomes more popular, that might be exactly what you're talking about.
And that I wouldn't mind at all. I mean, I would volunteer for that, but as far as having a chip implanted in my body, I'm not going to volunteer for that. There's no way in hell.
No, Mikey already has one. Did it hurt when they put it in or anything?
Oh, no. When you're a fetus, nothing hurts.
Right.
Okay. Where do we go with that one?
They do it early, so you don't have any trauma. They know it's a traumatizing experience. There's some electrical activity when it links up to the servers, and you just don't want to be conscious while experiencing that. But you also get all the really bad porn memories from a long time ago, because the cybersecurity, the WannaCry virus, it all just messed everything up. Let me tell you.
Well, we'll be coming to that.
This was
later.
only 32 years ago. Imagine how bad it is now.
Good Lord, yes. So it generally speaking, I was just trying to be helpful, Britt, and come up with some ideas.
We'll try harder.
The idea of being pulled over by the highway patrol officer who likes to pull people over on the highway down from us. He's back again, by the way. I don't want to give him I don't mind showing him my passport. I don't want to give him my passport. I certainly don't want to give him my green card, because there's a fair chance in certain parts of the country you won't get it back.
So you'd rather have something implanted in your body?
No, not implanted. No.
The chip's in the card.
The chip's in the
EMV
card.
chip's in the card.
But it means a less important, perhaps, card, like a state driver's license, only federal.
So you kind of want like a federal ID?
Yeah.
Not necessarily a driver's license, just a federal ID.
And all you have to do is be a citizen to get one.
And pay for it.
And pay for it.
Now, I am showing, just so everybody knows that is listening, I am showing the folks a green card. This is actually a real green card. Now, if Mikey, who's sitting next to me, is a police officer and he says, give me your green card, and I do, right? And I do,
Yoink.
I have given up my green card
Yeah.
legally.
Yeah. It has been interpreted that way.
Yeah.
Apparently.
They have interpreted not ISIS, have interpreted that as voluntarily giving up your green card.
Oh, so they can just strip you of your immigration rights just
Exactly.
because they
Yes.
said, here, can I see that?
Don't say they can't, because they do it.
No, I'm not going to say that. But if you have this biometric card, why couldn't you? Why couldn't people just fake them or somehow scan them and create just fraudulent cards like they do with fake IDs of any kind of ID?
Well, maybe they
EMV
could.
chip
What would stop
technology is
them?
very expensive. Mag strip technology is not that expensive.
It's becoming cheaper and cheaper every day.
It will eventually, sure.
But it's going to get there. I mean,
that's the pitfall of technology itself.
it
is
is.
There's hacks, there's fixes, there's plugs, there's patches,
It's
but
just
then
a
there's
cycle.
and then it just keeps happening.
so
yeah.
why continue the cycle? I mean, we have what works.
Well, the
so-
concern would be then, and who is contracted to oversee and administer to those systems? Because it can be a great idea now, and then 5 years down the line, no funding for it whatsoever, and the system just collapses. So it depends on who the government contracts to administer those systems.
Blackwater
if the government
will actually be doing
does it
it, yeah.
themselves, and there are a lot of pitfalls with it. It's a great idea, but I think there are pitfalls.
But see, I think that there's a further or a subtext to Jeremy's question. I think the subtext is that what we have right now presumably isn't working. The notion is we need this federal ID to fix something. And so my initial pushback on the question is, what exactly does this federal ID fix?
Well, see, that's where I was going to go. I mean, if you have this new ID to fix a problem, instead of creating a new ID, why don't you just fix the procedure? That way you can keep the ID that we currently have in the system that we currently have. You just fix the procedure, so you don't need to spend a lot of money to go create this brand new system for all these new IDs. But of course, there's probably going to be some corporation who's going to make a lot of money off these new IDs. So of course they're going to lobby for it and push for it and what have you.
We have too many freaking IDs already.
Agreed.
Yeah. I have a job that requires IDs of various kinds. And a person who's had their wallet stolen is in a hell of a lot of trouble. Or as somebody who's lost their home and keeps their world in their backpack and goes to sleep and wakes up and their backpack's gone. To get a state ID card, you have to have your birth certificate, for which you have to have a state ID card. Right? Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
The circle is never ending. And if we just add one more to it, it's going to be that much more problem. I think the solution is to require less ID and start recognizing human rights for humans.
Is there any money in that, though?
I'm sure there would be eventually, yes.
Electronic
We
verification
can find money for everything. Yeah.
that a lot of companies use that have to do with searching for merchant records, government records, etc., and then involve the customer or, the person answering the questions themselves is pretty effective. Although it's effective in determining someone's identity, and it's also effective in determining this social security number does not match this name, this social doesn't match this birthday, it doesn't match these things, and these answers and questions and answers were also not right or were right. You can tell a lot from that, but the records themselves are also flawed. Somebody who never lived at this address but was registered there under a mailing list one time will be like, well, hell, I never lived there. And those work pretty well for the most part. But as far as a card, as far as a piece of physical provenance that you can have to prove your identity, no matter what, no matter where, in all systems and databases, I don't think that's a good idea at all, because you got to segregate
Oh, we're not allowed to use that word. Don't go there. Don't use the word
Oh,
segregate.
shit.
You
Oh,
did, didn't you?
shit.
Because the different systems cannot become intertwined. Once you intertwine them all is when real bad things can happen for the individual. And that's just my dystopian universe theory. Personally,
That is your
though.
big word for the night, right? We're not using. No one's to use what did you say was
Theory?
dystopia? Is that like it's like diarrhea, isn't it, or something? It's
Cornucopia?
I don't even remember now. Why did
Dysentery?
you do this to me?
Dystopian.
That would, yeah.
So I don't know
Eventually,
who's
when
going to
I
go
have money,
first.
it'll just all
but
money
I
will
know
be on
you. I
cred
know you've all
sticks.
read
Yeah,
the things. So share with us, will you? Somebody, a real life hero that you personally know, and something of their story, including why you think they are in fact a hero. Dr. Orlando.
Why are you picking on me first? God.
All right. Jason Springer now.
All right. My answer is actually Dr. Orlando. A couple reasons, actually. Number one, when this question came out, where everyone's going to be very quick to say someone from their family, so I try to avoid that. But then I thought of the people in my life, and you were actually a very easy choice, Doctor.
Thank you.
Because I remember the day we met. I will remember that to the day I die.
Me too.
You were very confident, and you were very assured of yourself. You were not cocky in any way, but you were just confident in your own skin. It takes guts to be in a room full of strangers and have enough comfortability with yourself to be who you are and to portray that in that positive way. And that's the first reason. The other reason was in that year that we got to know each other, and time after that, you went through some personal issues in your life, and it took for you to kind of deal with some relationship issues that I'm not going to get into out of respect for you. You were, again, you were very confident with your feelings, and you were very honest with yourself, and you and I had numerous talks, after class, what have you. And I just have a great deal of respect for you, and so this was actually a very easy question for me.
Thank you very, very much.
We're
most
almost
welcome.
cry now. You know
That was quite honestly
Yeah.
the hardest time in my life, and those conversations with you are hands down the highlight of it. So I appreciate that very, very much.
You're most welcome.
What about a real hero?
Well, I'd
I have
say
to bring
you, but I mean, you're just full of shit, so
Bring
not
it down
you.
to the level. So, okay, share with us a real life hero that you personally know, something of their story, including why you think they are, in fact, a hero. Mike. Mikey.
My mom. So cheesy. Oh, man.
True, though.
Right. It is true. Everyone can say their parents are their heroes. I know that is a fact, that anyone can say that. The reason being is she's a strong single woman. Raised me, single mother, raised me. My parents divorced at a very early age. I was 1. She put herself through college. Her own mother died while she was in college, and I never met my grandmother, but I heard she's great. And I can only imagine that's a real difficult struggle to get through. And she put herself through college, got her law degree, became a successful attorney in her hometown, and now is a judge, and she feeds me pork chops sometimes. That's about it. That's all I can really ask.
There
Can't
can
go
be
wrong with
no
pork chop.
higher
Can't, yeah,
indication of love than feeding you a pork
Yeah.
chop, right? Yeah.
Sharing
That's a good one.
pork chops.
Yeah.
Dr. Orlando.
So, yeah, Springer, you're absolutely right. When I thought about this question, I thought about my brother, but I have a story. So everybody that knows me knows that I'll have a story. So when I was 8 years old, this would have been in 1979. 8 years old, so it was still at the time where parents could leave their kids at home without too much trouble. Or it was societally accepted
There
to
you
be
go.
able to leave your kids at home. So my mom put me in charge, as she typically did, of the 5 of us. And she went out. She had something to do. She was only going to be gone for like half an hour or whatever. So she left. While she left, our house filled up with smoke. Literally, our house is on fire. And like 30 seconds after I noticed the smoke, I'm walking around looking at where the smoke is coming from, and I can start to see flames shooting from the ceiling beam, the door jamb. There are flames shooting from the door jamb. We are under strict rules not to leave the house. So I stand in the door frame screaming fire, because I don't know what else to do. My brother, who's 2.5 years younger than I am, he's 6 years old. He has the presence of mind at the age of 6 to say to me, maybe I should go get the neighbor. I say, yes, please go get the neighbor, while I hustle the other kids out onto the porch. Once he says it, it clicks in my head that it is more important to get out of the house than it is to follow mom and dad's rules. So he gets the neighbor calls the fire department comes. Turns out our hot water heater just had some kind of snafu and decided to catch the house on fire.
And that just happened to happen right after your mom left.
It literally, like my mom was gone maybe 10 minutes. She comes home. 20 minutes later, there are 3 fire engines in the front of the house.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So, to this day, whenever I think about the term hero, the very first thing that pops into my head is the fact that my brother, at the age of 6, had the presence of mind to look at the situation, decide what the most efficient course of action is, and let me know what he was doing and go and do it. And I can say with at least a little bit of pride that he's a doctor right now, and he is very well known for keeping a cool head under tense situations.
That's a good hero story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had he followed your instructions, he'd be dead.
Exactly. Exactly.
Kathleen.
I'm a different sort of hero, I think, and it's a bit more generic. I'm thinking of one specific politicians, but there are more in the world of this sort. This is a person who is a legislator of a certain party who is a moderate, where his party has gone extreme to the other direction.
She's talking about Donald Trump, isn't she?
No, I am
so.
not. I'm talking about a moderate Republican in the state of Kansas. Now, this is not a popular position, but he has stuck around and is fighting for the principles he believes in, despite the fact that the party around him, I think he can probably recognize, is doing bad things. And people like that all over the country who are still fighting for what they think is right are heroes.
I agree.
Yeah.
I thought of this because somebody suggested it, and there are a number of people I think I've bumped into in my life who I could say was heroes. I was talking to my friend Brennan just now about a lady. I've actually got a picture of her here, who I think is a hero, but it's not her. She is a hero. That's a picture of her there, and her showing everybody a picture of a girl in an MG in 1932, 33. She was a hero. No, my hero is a lady, Kathleen will know who it's going to be. Her name is Nan Hurst. She's about 1,000 years old, and she escaped. She's Polish, and she escaped from a concentration camp as a young thing. I won't describe how she escaped, but she managed to escape, and she made her way in Poland. She became very good at 2 things. One was making and distributing Molotov cocktails, and she was also a very good shot with these Molotov cocktails. She was young enough and agile enough to be able to stand on a windowsill, lean out and drop them down the turret of a German tank. This is real. Absolutely for real. The other thing she was very good at was forging signatures of the German senior officers who would give people passwords. Anyway, at the end of the passes, and at the end of the war, she met and fell in love with a British officer, and he managed to get her back to England. And I bumped into her in the mid-90s when I got involved in politics, and it was said, never start talking to Nan, because if you do, you will end up standing for the Liberal Democrats, and it doesn't really matter what your politics are or your religion is. That's what's going to happen. Now I know a little bit more about her. I know how she got out of the concentration camp. Nobody listening to this, I should think, has the slightest idea of what it was like to be in a concentration camp. But she was, and she still works supporting the Liberal Democrats, raising money, selling cards and selling whatever she can do, because she believes it's important. And whenever she comes across someone who says, "Oh, Nan, I'm not sure it's actually worth voting," what she does is, I'm doing this to Mikey, she puts her hand on your arm like that and squeezes very tight. And she goes, "I don't care who you vote for, as long as you vote. Women died so that you can vote." That's my hero. So thank you for that. That's interesting.
I think your hero is definitely more valorous than all of ours. I think that was. I think that it is an interesting. I think that it's interesting the way that we each defined our heroes. I think there's something to be said about what part of the human condition is most salient to each one of us, just by that little exercise. That was very cool, Jeremy.
Interesting. As of a few days ago, 300,000 systems or more across 150 countries have been hit by ransomware. If it gets going, does the international ransom/malware hacking issue have the potential to end the internet as we know it?
Now, what do you mean end the internet? It's
the
because
Google, of going to the internet and finding stuff, and just doodling.
Now, tell me again, what is the internet?
Is he messing with me?
Oh, you're just trolling now.
Now, okay.
You are completely.
So if the end of the
trolling.
internet has come, is it because the government has shut down private avenues?
No, what I
to
mean,
it?
Mike, is because people are too frightened to go on the internet.
In other words, to connect to other computers.
Connect to other computers because they will pick up some sort of a virus.
Well, then what do they need the computer for?
Playing Pong?
Well, you don't need
What the
the
hell
internet
else
for
do you
this.
use it for?
No, I mean, exactly. So you just have a computer that's not hooked up to the internet, and you just play Fallout 4 by yourself.
No, there's no problem here, because this kind of harkens back to what we talked about a moment ago with our earlier discussion. I mean, you have this cycle of problems that require fixes, then you see the evolution of new problems, then you see new fixes. It's not as though there have not been threats to the internet in the past. Threats to the internet have been there since its inception, so it's just a new threat. That's all it is. It's not going to shut down the internet.
Same thing would have happened when the first virus came out that infected your computer and made it go and
just
die.
like when people freaked out about Y2K, I was going to shut down everything and nothing. Yeah.
Is it illegal to access the darknet?
No, it is not illegal, but it definitely puts you on a list. If you want to access the darknet, you will want to do something like VPN.
Yeah.
Quite literally, if you're interested in darknet and haven't found out about the Tor Onion router, that's where you need to start.
When Jeremy, I just have to
because
throw
I
this
really need to order weed online.
Well, again, for whatever reason, if you're a reporter and you're reporting on Erdogan and you don't want your to put yourself or your family or your newspaper in jeopardy, you hop on the darknet.
Right, that's a good point.
So
That's a very good point.
There are legitimate uses for anonymity on the internet, and there is a legal way to do it.
I have to just say, and this will be time unsensitive, but I was watching Erdogan's visit to see Mr. Trump today. And how some of his minders decided to take their wrath out on a couple of old boys who were complaining. The local Washington police didn't like this terribly much. And this one heavy in a suit with a gun was pushing this old boy on the floor and was kicking him. So a police officer gets his baton out. And he didn't whack him across. He actually used the end of the baton and stuffed it in his security guard's face.
Brutal.
Yeah. It was just interesting that we're still in America, we're still in charge, and when hoods like that come here, they're likely to get a police baton up their bollocks. And that's what happens in London, and that's great. Jason Springer now.
He answered first.
I answered first.
Could I just when you were reading this question, you were talking about international ransom malware, etc., and it gave me a really good idea for Ivanka Trump's new North Korean and Russian line of clothing, malware.
Ooh, that's good.
Don't
that's
you like
good.
it? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Taylor, here's what I think. I think that this question, the actual answer is yes. But I don't know that anybody at this table, including me, will actually recognize that there's a difference in the internet. The internet's an inherently unsecure place, and I think that things like this will further efforts to redesign the internet and make it more secure, an inherently secure environment. But I don't know that we will see that. Like, we've talked before about how, like, banking is still relatively safe because banking sites are secure, but your Google searches, if you guys don't know this, your Google searches are now able to be sold to whomever wants to buy it from your internet service provider. So there's
Thanks, Trump.
Yeah, there's still tons of unsecure places on the internet, but I think we're going to see all of a sudden the internet's going to become more locked down, actually more difficult for us to use, slower because of things like this. So I think that's going to be the change. But again, the point is, I don't know that we will be conscious or aware that it's actually completely changed.
Or people could just start using their computers the same way I do. I actually had an attack by somebody trying to hack my computer the other day, and I could see them watching what I was doing, and then I heard a little, and they were bored and they left.
That's creepy.
Fair enough.
All right. So if I'm hearing you correctly, Doctor, then basically you're saying the internet, it won't end, it will just evolve because of
it
this.
Will. I believe that it will have to. I believe that it's already currently evolving. Right now, more of the sites that we go to, right, yeah, more of the sites that we go to right now are secure than probably are not secure. And I think that we're going to see basically a redesign from the ground up. Like right now, if you guys are at all, and I'm looking at this crowd and I'm not thinking that this is going to go over very well, there's the IP4 versus IP6 name or convention that's happening right now, where it used to be that every computer on the internet had an address with 4 octets. Now the computers have, and it's not an octet anymore, but it's a 6-character address for each computer, and it basically like quadruples or 10 times or 100 times, whatever the number is, the number of computers that can be on the internet.
I see.
Something that basic and simple, fundamental to the internet, will change to make it more secure, and that's going to be the effect of things
like telephone numbers.
They're English letters.
They are
so people are
alphanumeric.
voluntary. Yeah, but are they using the English alphabet only?
No. No, they're alphanumeric. So right now, for instance,
numeric
Google's
as well. But I mean, are there Russian characters in there?
Cyrillic characters, no.
No.
So we're making the
it's,
Matrix stronger.
We are making the Matrix stronger.
That's what
That is
and
exactly
it's
the
even
right
more
answer.
English American centric. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's
Well-
not binary anymore. It's going to be just every single possible symbol that you could even fathom.
Well, no. In 10 years, when China rules the entire universe, we'll start.
Wasn't the attack from
seeing,
North Korea? Didn't they
Only
think
really
that
10 years away?
the WannaCry virus
Okay,
came
15.
from North
I'm
Korea?
That's why I
maybe
said the
sooner.
malware. North
No,
Korea,
I don't think
yeah.
they will master capitalism as well as we have in just 5 years.
But they're very good at learning from others' mistakes.
That's
and
true.
China?
And reverse engineering.
China said years and years ago they did not have to conquer the United States. They could buy it. They have mastered capitalism.
touche.
Yeah, so yeah.
They own the means
they
of
are the one
production.
country that can cripple our economy.
The country owns the means of production. The government owns the means of production. So that isn't that the goal of capitalism? Eventually,
They won.
yeah. That's eventually
Whenever
what you
they
get to.
decided that they've won, they've won. Yeah.
You get to about 4 or 5 people that own everything, and they're just like, oh hell, why don't we just name the country after us?
Yes. Why don't we become the government?
Yeah.
That's
Let's
it.
move on to the next subject. Tonight, on Wednesday Night Undressed, or Old People Complaining, film remakes. I've just noticed that they're going to do a remake, or they have done a remake with my friend Eddie Izzard in it, called Whiskey Galore.
On a side note, that's the second time tonight you've used the term "my friend," and we all know you don't have friends.
Well, true. Give us an example of your favourite remake of a much-loved film. And can a remake ever be as good or better than the original Dr. Orlando, you bastard?
I love this gang.
Sorry. Were you trying to say something?
It just blew out the whole thing.
Now who's being the bastard?
Now all of the sound equipment is destroyed because Jeremy coughs into the mic.
No,
Okay.
do carry on.
So when you asked this question, when you sent this question over, I'm looking at this question and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know that I know any remake that's better than the original. That's my first thought. However, I then hopped on the internet and started looking up remakes that have made more money than the original. And there were movies on that list that I never would have considered to be remakes, like I Am Legend, which is
Yeah.
a remake of
Omega Man.
Omega Man,
Yep.
which is a remake of, I can't think of the name, I'll have to find it here. But there are tons of movies that are technically remakes that you don't necessarily...
But doesn't making more money not make sense as a when there's a time difference?
See, this was
Movies
my
these days
ultimate
make more
point.
money than they used to make.
But and I agree with you. And this is kind of my ultimate point. I think movies serve as a what's the word I'm looking for? They are an anchor to that particular time and the ideas of what are going on when the movie is originally made. And so whenever you make a remake, you're essentially remaking it for the current time that the remake is made. And if you saw the original, you can't help but compare the original to the remake. And if you were a fan of the, you can't say, you will never have a much loved movie, as the question posed, and then enjoy the remake better. Because if you love the original, the remake can't help but take something away from that.
Agreed. The remake
I
will
don't
never
know.
Well,
be
it's a argument of intrinsic value. Is
Right.
what it is. They are all intrinsically valuable. It doesn't matter
Nah,
what
some are
time
rubbish.
period. Like, what's better, the Old Testament or the New Testament? Which
But
book
that's
was
different.
better?
But
Which
that's
book was
different.
better?
Start fires equally well.
It depends on. Okay, if you're exposed to the Old Testament and the New Testament at the same time, then you can realistically pick a favorite. However, if you grew up,
Oh yeah, sure. Well, what if you grew up with the Old Testament and then suddenly 10 years later they made the New Testament?
this is some shit.
Yeah, like you grew up with 50 different
Who's this
slabs
Jesus
of
feller?
you had slabs of carved etched stone, and you had to lug them around just to get through one page. For
You
God's
guys are
sake.
just getting silly. I
And
don't understand
then-
this.
Yeah.
Then they come out with
Oh,
some. They come out with
man.
some papyrus, which is easily
mean
condensed.
papyrus?
And
No, papyrus.
No, if he'd meant papyrus, he would have said papyrus.
Oh, okay.
This was a slightly cheaper version, very plasticky.
Somebody get a gag and put it on Mike.
Then the new King James version came out and put it all together, nice and neat with gilded edges. We're not going to say one was better than the other because it was all the same.
But see, here's the thing, though. Like, there are people that go to church and refuse to use any Bible that's newer than the King James Version because the King James Version was the one they were introduced to first. So, I
And then there are
think
people
that-
who don't go to church and think they're all rubbish.
I'm gonna go ahead and go back to this word film that's in the question.
Right, name some remakes.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to that word, and I'm going to think a little outside the boxes. Like you,
Mad
Dr.
Max.
Orlando, I
Mad
kind of
Max.
struggled as far as good remakes. Mike, you just mentioned it. Mad Max, that was a fantastic, but I don't know if I'd really call that a remake.
It could
because
be
wasn't-
it could be
wa-
alternative.
It was
you know,
just a
reality.
story within the story arc of Max. It wasn't necessarily a remake.
It was
However,
not about the Road Warrior.
Was Max mad?
very much so.
Okay.
However, the closest thing to answer your question, I would say, was The Shining. Because The Shining with Jack Nicholson is fantastic, yet The Shining, the TV movie with Steven Weber and Rebecca De Mornay, that's a great movie as well because that story is actually adheres to Stephen King's true story of The Shining. So if you are a fan of the novel The Shining, I could see someone loving that adaptation just as much. Now, I don't know if I would say I love it more because they both deserve their own level of superiority because they are so different because of what they do. Because with Jack Nicholson's The Shining, it's just the craziness and the horror of it. Yet when you look at Steven Weber's The Shining, you see the story of Jack Torrance and just why he gets so crazy and why he begins to break down and how the hotel actually possesses him. There's a difference.
Why is it
one
horror movies?
One is not better than the other, but they are both equally good for different reasons.
But
There are so many more horror movies that are remakes, though, isn't that
they're
true?
easy and cheap.
Easy,
And-
cheap, and it's
Yeah.
it's the same story. You
Because
know?
we'll spend money for screams.
Right? Halloween remake,
So name some.
the
Psycho remake.
I particularly like my producer Eric to join in because we have a lot of fun when we're doing broadcasting on the radio about this sort of thing. What brought this up was because I heard about a remake of a 1949 movie being made, and I thought, they can't do this. They can't get it right. When Tom Hanks makes a movie with all that goes into Tom Hanks being in a movie, and it was called The Lady Killers, it just goes to show that Tom Hanks is pretty good, but he ain't as good as Peter Sellers.
See, I'm not sure that he's not as good as Peter Sellers. Tom Hanks has done some funny shit. It's just that comedy is made for that time, that like the beats, the syncopation of the communication that's going on. It is all indicative of when the movie was made.
Or another example is The Producers. You know, with Zero Mostel in it. They try and do a new one, but
It doesn't work.
So
Well, in fact,
how
actor
many
was closer
remakes
to that time,
of
you know?
A Christmas Carol, which originally, true, was not a movie, have there been? And some of them have been great, and some of them have not. It's just, you get a good story, you do it
Muppet,
over.
Fantastic.
Christmas Carol, the best
Scrooge.
one.
Excellent.
Scrooge.
The best
excellent.
Sorry.
In all
Scrooged.
reality.
No, that was the
Yeah.
best.
Oh,
I gotta
yeah,
go with
okay,
Mr.
okay.
Springer.
Oh, yeah.
Molly and Molly.
I'll watch both back to back. You know, I'll do that. Yeah.
Do you
But
remember
during
that song?
Christmas time.
So I went online and I found a box office comparison of some of the more popular
God, you're
remakes.
a real geek, you are.
Oh, fuck yeah. Okay, so I'm going to just call out some of the movies. You guys tell me if you've seen one or both of them.
And Eric, join in, would you?
Yeah. 310 to Yuma. Has anybody seen either one of those?
Both.
What do you think? Which one was better, the original or the remake?
The original.
Okay. The Manchurian Candidate.
With Liev Schreiber?
The second one was with Liev Schreiber.
Oh, instantly,
one.
no.
First one.
See, I think the second one was better. I think it was the second one.
First one.
The audience disagrees.
yes.
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead.
Is that
The original.
D-O-N?
Oh, hands
The
down.
second one with Ving Rhames?
Yes.
Definitely better than the original.
No, the original, hands down.
And see, I am convinced, without a shadow of a doubt, that your answer to this is determined by which one you saw first.
Could be. How about Casino Royale?
I wouldn't classify that as a remake, though.
There was a film originally made
Two.
Yeah.
What was the first
4.
Bond movie?
Die Another Day?
No,
Casino
you see, it
Royale?
wasn't
Yeah.
Casino Royale.
Yeah.
With
The
Was that the
first
first
Bond.
book, though?
Who
That
was
the
the
first
Bond?
book,
Who
too.
was the
What
first
was the
Bond?
Bond?
who was
Who
the
was
one?
the first Bond?
Roger.
I don't know. Who was the first Bond?
Peter
David
Selwyn?
Niven.
Oh, David Niven. Right.
I just
So-
don't, I just
But
don't know. I don't know.
Wasn't the joke that they were all Bonds in that movie?
David Niven was the first
Okay,
Bond.
fine. All right. Freaky Friday.
Never heard of it.
Okay.
Both were actually
I saw
not
the
bad. I
first.
mean,
Haven't seen
I
the
only
second.
ever saw the
it's
first.
a kid movie, for God's sake.
How about
Okay, go ahead.
True Grit?
Ooh.
See, I like the original True Grit, and it's on the list here. But yeah, True Grit, I like the original, and I actually, as I'm doing this, I read article someone had written an opinion piece about why the Jeff Daniels True Grit version was much better than John Wayne's. Didn't matter a lick. I saw the original True Grit when I was like 7.
Yeah.
And it is always and forever
I think
the best
you're onto
one.
something here.
Yeah,
I really do.
But I think you bring up a good point, though, because the remake, because of the actors, that's why I like the second one better, because John Wayne was always John Wayne. I mean, he was in every
is
single
true.
movie. He was never anything but John Wayne.
He was Genghis Khan.
I have two for you. I have
Yeah.
two trick ones for you.
Okay.
Dracula,
Which
Been
Dracula?
remade many times.
the first Dracula movie.
Okay.
With
Like
Bela.
Nosferatu? Or, okay.
Or Nosferatu. Are you talking about that?
Nosferatu, yeah.
Okay. Which is
And
fantastic.
then one of similar age, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Wow.
I saw
right.
the second one first, so that one is my
But there is a
favorite.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid about the same era
As Nosferatu.
as Nosferatu.
Did you know that the film Dirty Rotten Scoundrels was a remake of
Yep.
one called Bedtime Story?
Yep.
Now, I didn't see Bedtime Story, but I love Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay, how about this one? Ocean's 11.
Oh, yeah.
Again, that's
Different
kind of where I
endings.
might go with the actors, maybe.
See, I
Different
think
endings?
the
I
second
didn't know
one, I saw the first one first, but I think this, and there's one other on my list here, that, oh no, that is the only one on the list here, that I feel like the remake is legitimately better. A
Yeah.
better movie than the first.
And I would concur with that.
Yeah.
Again, why I would say that the second True Grit I thought was better.
And our listeners can't see this. This list actually gives the rating of the people.
That's not the
how
rating.
many-
That's actually
or
the
how many
box
people?
office.
Oh, the box
That's
office.
actually the box
okay,
office.
Okay, which one's made more? Okay.
Yeah,
How many people saw both Charlie and the Chocolate Factories?
I did.
Which was better?
Yes.
Without question.
Oh, the original.
The Gene
original.
Wilder.
Oh, Gene Wilder was
with
hands
me.
down, hands down.
Yeah.
You will
Eric.
see. I wanted to throw mine in real quick. I bought the steel case 30-year anniversary Blu-ray collector's edition of Scarface. And then I discovered within it that there is an original from the
Right.
1930s starring
Right.
Paul Muni.
Uh-huh.
And I liked the second one better. Both of them were before my time, so your argument earlier about whether you're connected to it in a time or culture sense would kind of draw on your pick.
Right.
Both of them were before my time, but I liked the second one better. And I don't know if a remake and a reimagining of it can be considered the same because they applied the same principles of the original, but to a different culture, a
Right.
different part of the world.
That's a
And a
good
different
distinction,
person.
actually.
No, and it's actually one of the things that I sort of toyed with it as I was thinking about this because, you know, you look at something like, what the hell's the name of the movie that Star Wars was based on? The Kurosawa original flick.
Star Wars was based on something?
Yes.
My world is just falling apart.
You know, you look at things like that, or Vanilla Sky, Tom Cruise's Vanilla Sky versus the original Spanish version of the Vanilla Sky. Like, there are these movies that are literal scene for scene reshoots that are reimagining or that are remakes of the movie.
Psycho did it. camera shot for camera shot.
Look at the amount of money that the original Psycho made, $388 million versus the Vince Vaughn $35 million.
Whoa!
So,
But Vince Vaughn was fantastic in that. I mean, he was.
yeah, but I think that there's something to the original Psycho was a phenomenon for its time.
That goes back to the whole time period. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
It might
I'm
be
gonna
just
make
me,
you
but
lot
I
move
like
on.
Vince Vaughn. I don't know what you guys like, but just Vince Vaughn. That's the best impression of Vince Vaughn that I have right now. I don't know what you guys like, but
And
sure,
I'm
why not?
interested to
Just,
know
okay.
if when you're listening to this, you have a comment to make about what we're talking about. You want to join in. You'd like us to revisit a particular subject. You can email me. My public email is jeremytaylor@sunflower.com. Sunflower all joined up. jeremytaylor@sunflower.com. That's what I use for my broadcasting. And if you want us to revisit something, we'd be pleased to do that. Here's a question for you. Here's a question
Both are
for
best. Both are best.
you. Here's one for you. And tell the truth here, boys and girls. How do you describe yourself when asked, and what do you normally include in that description? For example, hello, I'm Jeremy Taylor. I'm a Brit. I do a bit of broadcasting. I own a real estate business. For example, how do you introduce yourself in a bit of a description? How do you describe yourself, Dr. Orlando?
I almost never describe myself. I think that is something that you do because you are a public speaker, and maybe Springer because you are a teacher. Do you have
That's probably the only thing I will ever say is I'm a teacher.
Right.
But I agree with you. Unless I am filling out a certain form or I have to indicate this or this or this, I never use these terms to describe myself.
All
never.
right, Springer.
So I'm going to change. Hold on. I want to change your question. No. You hang on.
I'm in charge.
No, you hang on.
Mr. Springer, you have travelled. You've travelled around the world. You've lived in different countries.
That I
You've
have.
lived in Asia and stuff like that.
Correct.
When you were there, how did you describe yourself?
It depends where I was. There are certain countries where I would have to go out of my way to. Let's just put it this way: I would feel more at ease and more comfortable if I said I was from Canada versus the United States.
Right.
Just depending upon what country I was in.
So you might put a nationality in there. Would you ever put a religion in there?
Never.
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 Okay.
So if
Dr. Orlando, we will now come back to you because you've been very obstreperous tonight.
Oh,
Well,
did you hear
another
that
big
big word?
word.
Woo! I think everybody should pass Jeremy $1. That word was so nice.
Obstreperous.
That's your one
if
for the
you
night.
had to describe yourself,
Right.
how would you describe yourself?
Human.
No, I mean you're trolling now.
No.
Seriously, if
What's it say on my notes, man?
it says
How would I describe myself?
sexy motherfucker. Well, no, sorry.
Well, okay, that's a given. I mean, But dude, it right there. How would I describe myself? I try and describe myself as a good person, but basically, I just am a human.
Yeah.
Because if I sit there, what I do every semester with my students, every semester with the speech that you are not special. We are all the same. There is no differentiation between all of us because we're all pink on the inside. Last time I checked,
Right.
So we're all
Last time you
humans.
cut somebody open, they were still pink.
Oh, you mean Thursday? Yeah, that's true. That's correct. Yeah, because that wasn't because they weren't a heavy smoker, so it was good.
Okay.
But
I
human.
have to not actually.
So are you
correct.
not a human then?
I am a human, but there are some of us that have blue blood rather than red blood.
No, you don't. Shut I'm gonna call bullshit on that right there. Jesus. For fuck's sake, lad.
Okay, no, I like this question a lot because it made me seriously ponder some of those categories that you listed in there because I don't describe myself a whole lot. But if I had to describe myself, that made me think about when I have to describe myself. It is usually on a job interview. And usually the description that I use are things about me that I think are most important or salient to someone that's doing the interviewing. So I want to get across the idea that I work best in groups, that I actually don't work well if I'm just put in a corner desk somewhere and expected to, work as an individual by myself for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I just don't. I don't function well in that environment. So I am socially motivated. I am goal-oriented. Those are the kinds of things that I use to describe myself. It usually doesn't come up in job interviews or things like that I am a reformed Jehovah's Witness, or that I usually don't have to bring light to the attention that I'm black. Those are things that I think are evident to the person that I'm talking to, so that I don't have to use them to describe myself. Usually it is situational, and the description that I use is based on the situation.
And to kind of echo that point as well, as far as not only that, but also the idea that you don't really describe yourself a whole lot, because when we are given, now, when we're put in social situations, usually the first question that's always thrown at us is, what do you do?
Right.
And usually that's the first thing that we use to describe ourselves as, oh, I'm a broadcaster, I'm a teacher, or I'm this, I'm that.
Male prostitute, yeah.
Yeah, you're big pimping, we know that. But, I mean, that's usually the first question people ask. You don't go up to a stranger and go, hey, how old are you? Hey, how big's your dick?
I know some
Nobody
people
says
who
that.
do that, but yeah.
I love the current story. There's a media thing going on right at the moment where a guy choked his girlfriend.
See, that's why you're my hero, dude, right there.
He choked his girlfriend. She was giving, and the police were doing him for murder, and he's saying, no, she choked on my penis. And they're going, yeah, right. And and his lawyers are demanding.
What'd you do? Wrap your dick around her neck?
Apparently, he has a particularly long penis, and he is demanding to show it to the jury. Questions from the jury to the judge, through the foreman, have been: will it be flaccid or erect? And there is a jury and a judge currently trying to deal with this in America as we record this, Kathleen.
Well, I should think that's what cameras were invented for.
Man, I make a horrible
But,
body joke, and look what happens.
I know. No, they're right. You're not asked to describe yourself unless there is a context. If you are asked to describe yourself in the terms of a job interview, you cater your answers to what they're looking for. If you are asked to describe yourself when you're brought up in front of the audience to serve as a guinea pig for a hypnotist, you don't say much. But it depends on the situation, how you describe yourself. Are you asked to describe what is your religion? Then that's different.
Then I think you bring up a good point, because given your situation, one thing that people really never do is they never describe their weaknesses. It's always some kind of positive light about themselves.
Yeah.
What's interesting
in all situations, I describe myself the same way. I'm an American Episcopalian call center worker male who is white.
Okay, you do that.
Well, nationality, religion, job, sex, race, etc. I've left out etc.
etc. is very important.
You're not
I
gonna
should have left out. I didn't.
So when you have a hot date waiting for you, blind date,
He hasn't not
And-
since
and
Trump
Don't
came
do
they
that
say-
again, man. I knew that was
describe
coming,
yourself so
man.
I can
No pun
recognize you
intended.
coming through the door.
All right, I'm an American. I have a call center job. I'm white. I'm Episcopalian, and etc.
That's she's not going to recognize you coming through the door, man.
So it's just kind of dumb for these categories to describe yourself as.
all
People
depends
describe
on what
yourself
you're
as
Well-
what you do, more verbs, more action.
See, I think the
information.
spirit
What do
of
you
the question,
do?
though,
What do you
is
like?
an interesting one, though. I think it's more a question about how do you self-identify.
Yeah.
Like,
Ooh, that's a good point.
Yeah. So, like, the
I
question
don't.
is,
Now we're doing some thinking, aren't we, girls and boys? Yes.
So what do you consider the salient, the most important facets of yourself that you want people or think people should know about who know you well?
sexy motherfucker.
Yeah.
So here's one for you
exactly.
to contemplate. I'm not, but someone might say, I'm Jewish. Or they might say, I'm Israeli. If they say I'm Israeli, what does that mean?
Well,
Because it doesn't mean they're Jewish.
in America, that's actually interesting, but me, I'm not interesting, so I would not describe myself in the identity that I have been raised in, because it's just not interesting.
I think that's actually a good point that Mikey brings up, because
yeah.
your reaction to I'm an Israeli really tells people more about you and who you really are, and not that fact that this person just said I'm Israeli.
See, I disagree. I think that it is
Really?
equally enlightening both ways. If I said, "Tell me a little bit about yourself," and you lead with, "I'm
Oh, I see where
Israeli,"
you're coming from. Okay.
Kansan. Good.
or "I'm a
That's good
Kansan,"
one.
or
No, I got you.
"I'm a
Kansan.
Canadian." I
Yes.
think that really how you describe yourself is an indicator
That's a valid
of
point.
the values that you hold. So if you if I start with "I'm a black cat," that I think would put people on guard. Like, oh, does that mean he's militant? Like almost immediately before.
Bolshe. Maybe not militant, but certainly Bolshe.
Right. So, like, I think that you glean a lot from having people self-identify because it tells you what their value systems are.
Okay, that's valid.
So
Yep.
for me, I'm like, when Jeremy posed this question in the notes for the podcast, I'm like, well, how do I identify myself? I think I would identify myself as primarily a goof. I'm the guy
And
that's...
how do you
Really?
use the word now? You
Interesting.
said, I think. When I think describe myself as. In your head, how do you describe yourself?
pretty much
Because
as a goof.
I never used to consider myself a Brit until I came to live in America.
You mean, do I think about, for instance, and I'm just picking on the most salient feature, the fact that I'm African American as the way that I identify myself? No. I am primarily a mental creature, and the way that I get through the day, the way that I make sense of everything around me, is to find the humor or the thing that amuses me about whatever it is. Even if it's a sad situation, if I can find something about it that will make me smile, that's what I key in on. So I consider myself primarily a goof. Not a goof off, but
You're
someone-
listening
I've actually done
to.
that before as well.
You're listening to
Yeah.
Wednesday Night Undressed. We've come to the last question of this evening. America's institutions may be said to be under assault, externally and internally. Can we ever get them back? And more importantly, do we want to? Kathleen.
Oh, well, that's with the events of the past couple of weeks moving as fast as they can. Our institutions have only just today, possibly, started to redeem themselves. But whether it's going to happen, I mean, there's a special prosecutor assigned today. Great. Should have happened ages ago. And will this movement have support of people who consider themselves good people, whether they are of any party or not? That is going to be a key question, because if it turns out that the people that we have elected to office really think more of their own political party than they do about the good of the nation, then I don't think we'll get it back. But if people come through, so it's important the next couple of weeks, see what happens. Dr. Orlando, what's going on?
What did you mean when you say American institutions are under attack? Because I read it one particular way, and then I spent the entire next day trying to convince myself that I read it the right way. Because I'm like, does he mean the institution of baseball? Does he mean the institution of federal prosecutors?
I think the institution of governance.
Sounds good.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say, because you have this question, can we ever get them back? And more importantly, do we want to? My answer is no. We don't want to, because essentially, and this kind of harkens back to some of the things we've talked about this evening, is you want to continually evolve. And that way, as you evolve, you are learning from your mistakes of the past. You never want to take a step backwards and go back to something that's of the past. Granted, we may be in a time of evil, if you will, but you could look at it as a necessary evil to make everybody more aware and like, wow, we don't ever want to make that mistake again. And so we need to evolve to make sure that we don't make that mistake again.
But are we not doing that? If we look back at what was going on in Germany in the mid-late 30s.
But we didn't have that leader here in this country. We as Americans are still a very young nation, a very
But
immature
are we not
nation.
saying with the current leader that we have of America, who is demanding loyalty, that's what Hitler did.
We are.
And
Most of America-
The people of this panel are, but as Mikey was about to say, I'm guessing most people in America, they're not saying that because they just
they're not
don't.
seeing it.
Exactly. They don't see it, and they're not saying those things.
Right.
I'm not even sure that they're not seeing it as much as they don't care.
They don't care, or they're not educated enough to know.
One of the two.
Yeah.
Post
No,
World War
that's
One, Germany was also very broke. People were very desperate, very, very desperate to understand anyone or anything that said, "Hey, I'll give you a chance." And but I think here in America we're a little better off, so we can see that shit coming.
So
Kathleen.
your response, Springer, put me in the mind of like a Hegelian or Kantian dialectic, where you take the bad crap from here and the bad crap from here and get rid of it and synthesize it into something better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
You saying Kantian takes me back a decade ago.
Yeah,
sitting,
I know.
Sitting in Van Zandt's class. Yep.
So what is the better thing that we come up with if we don't want these institutions back? Is there something that we can see right now that is a viable alternative?
Is there a categorical imperative?
See, there's nothing.
Is there a category?
There's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can say that is better. You just have to just move forward and evolve. You don't know.
What I want to give the folks listening the thought is this: there's been talk of impeachment. There's talk of this, that, and the other.
Yes, please.
So what would happen if? And this is the end of the show for today, but just think about this. Trump wakes up one morning and he says, fuck this, I'm not doing this anymore. This is just bloody ridiculous. I'm a businessman. I've tried to do my best. They're not interested. I can't be doing this. And he calls it a day. Because he can. And you get Pence becomes president.
Sorry,
Have
I'm
you
sorry,
got
just
any
shivers?
Have you got any comprehension of what that means? When you talk about far right, this guy is so far right, he's almost coming back again. Think about abortions. Think about women's rights. All that stuff.
Handmaid's Tale.
This is where certain politicians in Kansas dream of. They have wet dreams of someone like Pence being president. So what I'm getting at is a lot of people are firing bullets at Trump. But I leave you with this thought. Is he that bad? He may just be stupid. But is he that bad? You've been listening to Wednesday Night Undressed, or Old Men Complaining.
Hey.
Like to thank
Hey.
and women.
What the hell?
Like to thank the
not
team
sexist
today: the
pigs.
Magic Dr. Orlando, the indefatigable Kathleen Taylor, Mikey Pokorny.
It's not illegal.
Who else was there? Oh, Jason Springer now.
Yipper.
Wow. And our team behind the scenes who run the engineering, Neil Rasmussen. Such a sexy name. Rasmussen. And of course, Eric the producer. Yay!